Welcome to Talk to Me Like I'm an Idiot. I'm your host, Angie McMahon. On this show, I interview people about jobs and topics I know nothing about. You can find us on all your favorite social sites at idiottalkshow. You can also use that hashtag to keep up with the conversation. Don't forget to tell a friend. Now, let's start the show.
I don't want to be alone in this bed. Won't you give me something I can take apart? I don't want to listen to the yelling in my head or the crying in my idiot heart. Idiot heart.
So, welcome to the show. Our guest today is Mr. Richard Scruggs. I was looking at your LinkedIn. It says a lot of, you're like a technology expert.
I'm an IT guy, yeah.
Yeah?
And I have been forever. I was that guy in like I'm older than you by a bit. And in like 1985, like when the Apple IIc came out.
Oh, I had one of those.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
I was all over that.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting to me, and just the whole idea of personal computing. And I was, at the time, I'd gone to film school, and I was a screenwriter.
Oh, okay.
Which meant that I waited tables and taught high school.
Of course.
And but I was in LA being a screenwriter, and I wrote with my friend Ed. And Ed had he worked for a not-for-profit that Jerry Brown had in between his governorships. Like, Jerry Brown is the governor of California right now, but he was also the governor of California about 25 years ago.
Oh.
And there's a big gap, and he re-ran and got it again, which was real weird. I don't know how often that happens, but it was kind of, and his dad was governor before that.
Oh.
So it's like it would be like if
It's like a daily
came back, like if Rich came back and was mayor for 4 years. I don't know if you could do that, but it would be like if he ran for mayor.
Crazy.
Yeah. So when I was in, I'm gonna quit doing that because you hear it. But so Jerry Brown's office had a K-Pro. Do you remember the K-Pro? It looked like a Singer sewing machine.
Okay.
Like a portable one, and you open it up, and there was a screen about the size of an iPod Mini.
Okay.
And a keyboard, and it used an OS called CPM.
Okay.
And it had WordStar.
Okay.
And which was the very first one of those things, and it used all the same, like Control-C, Control-V, all that stuff. That was the first thing that had any of that on an OS. So I immediately took my Apple IIc and hijacked it. Like I put a chip in, like I took it apart the day, voided the warranty the day I got it, put this weird little chip in so I could run CPM, so I could run WordStar, so Ed and I could share files.
Oh, wow.
Right? And we wrote probably 7 or 8 screenplays, none of which got about as far as you can get and not get anything produced.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we never got money. So
Gotcha.
we were like number 3 in people's piles a bunch, but never really got anything made. Anyway, I did that for years. So for a long time, throughout the late 80s and early 90s, I was that friend of yours who's way too into computers. So if I met you at a party, I would be trying to talk you into buying a PC. Not that I sold you, because I'm an evangelist, not a profiteer, which is sort of a different problem I'm having right now in my lack of employment. So what I would do is I would try to talk to you. You really need to have a PC, because I was like really into it. And then I worked at CompUSA for a little while because I was teaching high school during the day, and I had met this woman that I ended up marrying, Mary Scruggs, who the sadly deceased Mary Scruggs, and there was a year between us dating and her moving back to Chicago and me following her, that I just worked 2 jobs so I would have money when I moved here.
Okay.
Right, so I was working at CompUSA at night, and so I got really good at PCs and just like the whole thing. And then when I moved here, the first job I got, I was either going to teach, because Mary's family were all teachers, or I was going to do something with computers. And it was time to get hands-on. Previously, I was doing come set up your PC for $50.
Like Geek
Squad. Geek Squad stuff, but they didn't have Geek Squad.
Right.
So
you were like innovating your own Geek Squad.
Kind of, yeah. And if I was like CompUSA, who've gone out of business, but at the time, they didn't even have a Geek Squad.
Yeah.
So what you would do is you'd sell the computer, and then the people would be like, but I don't know how I'm going to get this set up. And you say, oh, I have a friend, and you gave them your number.
Right.
And then, and it was like, I charged like $50 for it, and I,
Yeah.
hang around with people. And I met some really I met Victor Garber's mom, who was like 75 and lovely.
Oh.
I knew who he is, right?
No.
He's a big Broadway guy.
Oh, okay.
And she would talk about him all the time, and I had no idea who he is.
Uh-huh.
But he was, he's on DC's Legend of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Which, and he's if you saw him, he's an old dude, but he was like Barnum on Broadway. He's an amazing guy.
Nice.
A song and dance man.
Yeah.
And
that's what I always wanted to be. That's actually
song and
what
dance person?
I wanted to be, a song and dance person. Like, that's actually.
Can you sing?
No.
Oh,
that
see,
is
there
the
you
problem.
go.
Actually, it is so strange. What just came to me, I had a dream last night that somehow all of a sudden I became a great singer. And I was like, new job. Like, I don't know why that just came to my head. But no, I can't sing, which is why I never became a song and dance.
And there's some, there's some things about, I wish I could sing.
Yeah.
I also have horrible stage fright, which is one of those things. If you've ever seen me improvise, I don't know that you have.
I have, because you've taken classes. You took classes with Kevin when we both
Yes, I
owned
did.
the
That's
company.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you performed a lot, actually.
Yes, and I'm very stiff.
Yeah.
I feel like, and it's just I'm very in my head, and it's all these things, and I worry a lot about being old and fat.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like young and skinny. So I'm very good at the scene where I'm your dad, your uncle, or just somebody your mom's banging.
Right.
And we're gonna get through this,
We're
and whatever it
gonna get through
is.
this.
And unfortunately, and what happens on both sides is I'm like, okay, I know this scene really well because I'm a parent, and the person on the other side of the scene would be like, oh, that's a release. We have a map, but I never got to do different scenes because I wasn't very good at allowing that to happen, which is my problem as an improviser. Yeah, I mean it's a mileage thing, and also because I'm just so terrified on stage that I'm just like, okay, I need something. I need like I need warm pair of jeans to get into.
Now, Mary was a writer, and she developed the writing program at Second City. But was she a performer?
No,
Mary didn't.
Well, she did. But she had a degree in theater from Northwestern, so she was no slouch. And she was there at the same time as like Colbert and Craig Bierko, who was the music man on Broadway.
Oh.
And I mean, like really good people.
Yeah.
Messing was in her class.
Yeah.
Really good people were there at the same time. David Schwimmer was the class behind them, so the whole Looking Glass group was like right behind them at Northwestern.
Oh, wow.
Jennifer Estlin was in the Looking Glass class. And she wasn't that wasn't like her thing. She was more about writing, and she won a playwriting award there. And when I met her, she was in LA being a TV writer.
Oh, okay.
And she had more heat in 10 weeks than I'd had in 10 years.
Wow.
Of like knocking around. And so I'm like, oh, I got to hook up with her. Also, I was at there's like age thresholds one hits, and I clicked a little bit over 30, and I was like, oh, okay, whatever I'm doing with these women in my life, and I'm not one of these guys. I can usually talk a girl into like not sleeping with me pretty quickly. It's a questionable skill set, but it keeps everybody honest. It's like, okay, in my head, I'm like, if I forget when to stick, I'm going to hold on to it. Because, that means she's special. And I caught her in a weak moment or something, but we were able to so we dated for 2 years out there, decided to get married, and I came here because I don't know why. My joke that I make is that, when you meet a girl from Chicago and you date a girl from Chicago, you have to live 6 blocks from her mom. Once you get married. So they can fight closer. Because so much of it is just screaming whatever and then driving over there and fighting in person. Riders Park for the win. So she was doing that and decided she hated it after, but she had a really good year. And then her second year, she temped a Playboy, And you know, Mary, it's the girls on the magazine aren't necessarily the girls that work in the office. She's a very normal-looking person, right? And just like she worked. I'm going to tell you the story of Mary Scruggs. That's what we're going to end up talking about.
No, whatever we want. This is whatever.
Yeah, she worked in she worked in the legal department of Playboy, and they had just fired the head of the legal department on a sexual harassment thing, which is I think a big problem at Playboy.
Wow.
Because they get people get confused as to why they're there, and so the guy that had taken over, they were so worried about like anything. And this was, I would say 1990, 91, when there was still a Playboy channel. I don't know if that's still a cable thing, but there was.
I think it's a pay-per-view thing. Like
Okay.
you can rent. It's been a while, but
Sure.
I think.
How old's your youngest kid?
She's 13. I think the last I checked, it was like you could buy an hour block at a time. So you'd pay like $10 for an hour.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was like an actual channel, I assume.
Yeah.
I never had it, I don't think. But so what was interesting to me is at the time Playboy was still based in Chicago.
Yeah.
But the West Coast office did a lot. And the Chicago office, they published the magazine, and so the legal department like wrote contracts for Jules Pfeiffer and like cool contracts and worked on First Amendment things because they have a whole foundation because obviously First Amendment free speech is very important for the Playboy organization. The West Coast, that at the time, they were about making sure the logo isn't used randomly in like a Korean grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
Or writing ironclad contracts so the girls can't appear anywhere and say they're affiliated with Playboy without Playboy getting a cut. Or the third thing that I found fascinating was watching everything that was on the Playboy channel to make sure it met whatever their standards and practices were. So this guy, Mary did not have to do that. Her boss, who was the vice president of legal on the West Coast at the time, had to watch, or chose to, nobody knows. Because he was the bottom line. He's just one of those guys that was super thorough about, if his name was on it, he made sure. So he would watch everything that went on the channel to make sure that everything was excised from, because at the time I don't think you could show pubic hair, or there were like some real interesting things. And so Mary's job would be to take the transcription of it, or to transcribe it from a recorder, a dictaphone, if you will, and it was minute 32, frame 19, penis visible. And she would have to type. So she did that for like a year.
Oh, wow.
Hated it.
I bet.
Every second. And so then decided, and she had an opportunity. So her job after Northwestern to bounce back is you grew up in Chicago, right?
Yes, suburbs, northwest suburbs.
Do you remember Greylord when they had to fire all the judges?
No.
This is like the 80s, I think. And I'm not from here, so I'm not 100% sure on the timeline. But, so she graduated in 86, so it would have been like early 80s. And it was one of those deals where they figured out that not every single one, but a lot of judges and lawyers were just on the take, and there's just a lot of payoffs going on. And so they had to fire like everybody. All like tons of judges were in the news every day, and everyone was indicted. It was like a huge deal in Chicago. And this woman that the chief judge decided to hire a PR department or start a PR department or something. And this woman, Julie Miller, who was Mary's boss, not at the time, was hired to be that person. Okay. And she hires Mary to be her assistant because Mary's mom. You know, when you go to writing school, like Mary had it was theater, but it was also a writing deal. She was in the AV, whatever it is, I think the Department of Speech, as they do the communications writing stuff. So she had a playwriting thing. One of the things they tell you is write your spec scripts now and then move to LA. right? So
okay.
stay in your crappy hometown.
Okay.
Get a job at the Woolworths.
Yeah.
Write your spec
I
scripts.
do remember the Woolworths.
Right. And she, but her crappy hometown is Chicago, one of the greatest cities on earth.
Yes.
And she got a job with the county because there was good benefits.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So,
We're in the city.
county benefits, yeah.
Yeah.
And so she worked in the Daily Center.
Mm-hmm.
It was, you went down the tunnel to go to Marshall Field, so you didn't have to go outside, you needed code. You know, it was like a great job. And she got hired to be the assistant to this PR lady.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow they decided that they needed to get people to like the courts again and to trust them.
Okay.
It's like, let's do it with school children.
Okay.
So what they did was they hired, Mary wrote I think somebody else might have been doing this before, but they kind of they were nationally famous for this. They adapted fairy tales, and if you grew up in the suburbs, you saw one of these because they did them everywhere. They took one of the first ones was Jack and the Beanstalk.
Mm-hmm.
Jack's up for murder one.
Oh.
Right. So what you do is you sit the kids down, you swear them in as a jury.
Yeah.
Right. Then you perform the tale of Jack and the Beanstalk, the
I-
miller's wife, and right.
Oh yeah, I think
You saw
yeah,
this.
Oh yeah.
There's no way you didn't because they did it everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the second half of it, they came back and they did a court trial where the kids are the jury.
Yes.
Yes.
I got to be on one of the
Yes.
juries.
Yes.
I remember how I was so into it.
And you were like in second grade.
No,
or like
I think I was
fifth.
in maybe fifth.
Yeah.
I think it was in
'Cause
fifth.
that would be about the age that you could get it.
Yeah, and they put me on the jury, and I was so excited because I loved those law shows. I want, I wish I was smart. My baby sister's a lawyer, and in my head, I think every day she's just like, this man over here did it. Like,
Right,
like
and she's just like reading contracts.
I know. I watched her in court one day, and she was just
At
like,
least she's in court.
yes, I know she is. I went and watched her in court one day. It was so funny because there was this older lawyer gentleman who I was like, did you go to law school? Like, he just kept saying to the judge was like, okay, so on this Thursday we'll give you your court date. And he goes, well, why can't you give it to me now? And she's like, well, that's not how we do things. On this Thursday we'll give you the court date. And he was like, well, I don't understand why you can't do it now. And Tony was like, how many more minutes are we going to do this? And I was like,
Oh, good for her.
but it's not like as exciting as...
No.
But I was so excited to be put on that jury.
Yeah.
And I remember I took notes. There was kids falling asleep next to me.
Sure.
And I took notes, and I went into the 12 Angry Men room when
Yeah.
you talk
the
about
deliberation.
and I was like, I think I should be in charge. I'm the most excited. Half of you fell asleep, and like we went down, and I mean half these kids
So
were
it was like a real jury.
oh man. And I've never been. I'm like, maybe now I will because I'm talking about it, put it in the universe. I've never had jury duty.
Yeah, it's cool.
I-
It's one of those things where it's kind of boring and a lot of times you don't get picked.
Yeah.
But I was on a trial. It wasn't a trial, it was a settlement thing.
Uh-huh.
And it was one of those cop shooting deals.
Oh.
And so the cop had been found guilty. It was one of those bang, 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 freeze.
Oh, yeah.
African American kid in Lawndale. 4 cops get out, he runs.
Yeah.
And they chase him and they shoot him.
Yeah.
And there's some questions of whether gun was planted or not.
Yeah.
And and everybody testified, but like my jury's job was to figure out the settlement.
Oh.
And so they basically had to retry it to recap it for us.
Wow.
So we saw some of the same witnesses and stuff. It wasn't the trial. So it wasn't whether or not anyone was guilty. It was how much does he get? And it was, so his people are asking for $8 million. So it's like because he died, some amount, and then a bunch of pain and suffering for the family. And then then the city is asking for we should give him anything or something. It was, and it was really fun. I mean, not fun like, oh my God, that we're going on a log ride fun.
Right.
But it was like really interesting and super engaging.
Yeah.
And there were people that were really interested in it.
Yeah.
and see people that weren't, but you kind of do your civic duty.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's weird anyway because a lot of people are like, I know how to get out jury duty. I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why don't you just walk and say, I'm kind of an asshole and I don't feel like I want to do my civic duty, please.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're saying
Well,
by
and
beating the system.
There's like this whole mystery around it because I've never done it. And I see like television clips where it's like getting out of jury duty or, oh man, I got picked for jury duty. And I'm like, I want to do it.
Yeah,
like,
it's
I would
super
like
cool.
to do it.
You feel like you've done something, you know, and you get like $15.
Well, then why don't they let
And you
people
got lunch
sign up?
downtown.
Why don't, instead of just picking people, why don't they let people be like, I want to be a, because probably then you have
You
that.
get the same people a lot.
Because then you get that John Cusack movie where he wants to infiltrate the trial and all of that.
I don't know what movie that is.
Oh no, I'm trying to remember the title of it. John Cusack infiltrates if you know this, put it in the comments of our social. He infiltrates the jury. He becomes a jury member to try to persuade the jury to give this huge settlement to this town that was set up next to these electrical wires and all got cancer or something like.
His grandfather lived there. Or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay.
And, but
I
like
know that one.
he got picked, thinking that everyone thought he was the other side, like, oh, screw them. But then he like slowly would talk to people like, oh, what about this? And they'd be like, oh, that's really. And then he flipped the whole
Really?
jury. It's a great movie, but I can't remember the title of it.
Some of them.
But John Cusack.
I'll
was
look
in
it up later.
Look it up.
So she did this, and so it was Jack the Beanstalk. He's up for murder one.
Yeah.
The lawyer, and I think the first time they did it, Stephen Colbert was one of the lawyers. I think.
Really?
Because he was. Ann Libra.
Yeah.
Ann Libra directed it.
Okay.
Because they were all roommates. They all lived in the
yeah.
same crappy apartment. That weird off-campus apartment was just a pile of kids.
Yeah.
It was basically all the roommates and Mary wrote it. And I think Mary might have been in it once or twice, but I think mostly she was. She just was like working for the house, as it were. And you know, these kids would just drive around in a van and then go do these kid shows, and they got paid by the county to do it. So it was like one of those.
Like a mock trial or something.
Yeah, it was the same department that does the mock trial projects is the department that put this on. But they would Jack's up for murder one.
Yeah.
The lawyer explains that, well, just because he's the worst man in the village, you don't get to kill the giant and take his goose. You know, that's not what. And then you got these kids going,
yeah.
but his mom was poor.
Right.
You know, and you're like, well, does that make it okay?
Yeah.
And so those were the kind of issues that they were dealing with. And then there was like the actors. I don't know if the original ones, but later they got trained in Socratic dialogue, so they could have these conversations with these kids and knew how to run a group, and it was like really super cool, and it ran forever. There still might be a version of it going, but I know they still teach it in that at Northwestern in the summers. They do that school for gifted kids, or whatever it is. They teach it there. Okay. And but at least for like 10 or 15 years, this was something that was like an ongoing concern, and budget and stuff like that. But they did it with Loyola student for a while, so you could get like work study credits. They figured out how to fund it. Anyway, Mary had done that before. Okay. Left to come be in Hollywood. Hated Hollywood and just had like a lot of like weird. She met me, which I thought was great, but the other stuff, it just wasn't what she wanted, and she didn't like the kind of grind it was. And she came back, and by then we connected and decided that we were going to get married. So I followed her, thinking that in 1993, I thought I'd be here for 2 years. And now we're at 2018, and she's dead. So it's all very sad. So she did that, came back to when she left Hollywood. She was like, well, at least I can see my work produced. Yeah. I'll go to Chicago, see my work produced, and they did a movie a driver's ed movie for the circuit court. It was Little Red Driving Hood.
Oh.
And the wolf is just, a cool kid who has beer. and the red is a Miata. So it's like this girl in a Miata, and she picks up the wolf, and he's like fast. And then they did actually Michael Reese Hospital paid for a thing about Sleeping Beauty. And in this Sleeping Beauty, she's, it opens and everybody's around and the prince comes in and he gives her the big kiss and she doesn't wake up. So now we have to decide, do the fairies keep her alive or do we just unplug her?
Do you know, side note, do you know the real, Grimm's?
Oh, I'm sure he slits her throat.
No. So, first of all, we're in a Disney vacation or something.
Sure.
And they're doing Disney trivia. And my 13-year-old, who has read all the Grimm's fairy tales, shouts out the real Snow White, or the real Sleeping Beauty. She's like, oh, you mean the reason she actually woke up because she started giving birth? Because he didn't kiss her, he actually had sex with her unconsensually because she was asleep, and that what actually woke her up. And I was like, what are you saying? What is happening?
Is that really in the story?
That's what happened. So she was in a coma, basically.
Yeah.
He climbed on top of her, had his way with her, and what woke her up was her pushing a baby out of her own body.
That sounds lovely.
That's the Grimm's fairy tale. And I'm like, and she's just telling there's 7-year-olds in this trivia. And I was like, stop it! You're ruining Disney for everyone, including mommy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, so anyway, so the prince comes in, tries to give her a kiss, she doesn't wake up. So then it becomes a discussion about whether, the prince says, she wouldn't want to be like this. And the parents are like, well, we want to keep her alive. And the idea was that when your parents are infirm, you're going to be dealing with the loss of your parents. I don't know what to say your parents are, but whatever. I'm assuming they're older than me.
Yes, and they're alive.
And they're alive, right.
And happily to be alive.
Yeah, that's how, my parents are in their 80s and bizarrely healthy.
Yeah.
But, and we like that.
Yes.
But, you deal with it and you think about when grandma dies, that's mommy's parents.
Yeah.
Mommy's not going to be so good at dealing with you right now because she's dealing with her own crap, right?
Ah.
So the idea is that the kids know about loss and they know about what the choices that are being made. So when they're around them, they'll maybe be more sympathetic.
Oh.
It was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
And so that way be like, well, grandma's got cancer, and the kids are like, yeah, we covered that in school, we're good.
Right.
And then we're moving on. We're gonna go play outside now.
Yeah.
Tell me what happens. Yeah, we should pull the plug. I was at school. We voted.
We voted.
And or whatever. Keep her alive because maybe there'll be a cure. So yeah, she worked on that, and then she wrote for. She always made her living as a writer.
Yeah.
Almost always, and she wrote for Rotary International, which is kind of a weird gig. Mm-hmm. They're up in Evanston. That's their international offices. And she had this job where she was the speechwriter for the president of Rotary International. Oh. The president of Rotary International changes every year because it's an honorary position.
Oh, okay.
So it's some dude, usually a rich guy, goes around the world talking about the good works that Rotary does. Sometimes it's an optometrist from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Other times it's one of the ministers of Singapore.
Wow.
Or Malaysia, I guess. Is who the Bishai Radikul was the guy that she had to write for. So she got really good. So she did it for 3 or 4 years. So it was 3 guys that she did it for. And you would have to figure out their voice and then write them a speech that they could deliver, and they were maybe not native English speakers. So it was just a really interesting job for her because it was a puzzle to try to get this guy's, she'd meet with the guy a couple times or exchange, a lot of times she never met him, they would just exchange things, and then she would try to capture their feeling into a speech that they would then give.
Oh,
which,
wow.
yeah, is that cool? And then at that time, Anne Libra kind of hooked her up teaching writing classes at Second City,
Gotcha.
and then kind of evolved into being the head of the writing program there for like 10 years, and loved it. But she also did her one-woman show,
Right.
that was about riding cross country with motorcycle enthusiasts.
Yes, I remember.
You'd be good for that. Would
Yeah.
you want to do that?
Maybe.
You're not doing anything right now.
I'm not doing anything
You're
right
doing
now.
podcasts in your living room.
I'm not doing anything right now. I remember because Mark Gagne
Yeah.
was directing it, right?
That was a different show.
Okay.
She wrote about 3 things at Second City that Mark. Yeah, I remember Mark Gagne, who was a.
He was the artistic director of the Free Associates.
He was a free associate, not an Improv Institute guy, because I mixed them up.
Well, they were one at Sing at one
look,
point.
I've learned something.
Yes, the Improv Institute now becomes an improv podcast. The Improv Institute was a group of people that did shows out of the Hungry Brain Bar
Okay.
by Western and Belmont, which is
not there anymore?
it is still there. It got closed, got rebought by somebody else. It's reopened. It's a little dive bar. It has a tiny stage.
Really? So it's like the Atlantic on, I would say, one of those places that people do bar prof.
Yeah.
But if you
It's
have
a
a
tiny little stage, like cozy little room, super cheap old style on draft, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
That's where the Improv Institute started. They broke off because improv groups do that.
Right, because that happens.
They became the Noble Fool and the Free Associates.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So they became these 2 other groups
Right.
that then did very similar work. Like the
Right.
Noble Fool would do baritones, which was improvised sopranos, where Free Associates was doing BS, which was improvised ER.
Right.
So like they
were doing those weird,
yes.
those improv form things that everybody thinks they've invented every year.
Right. Oh yes, I mean, that's
Like
so
improvised
interesting.
Sondheim,
Right.
improvised Jane Austen, which is actually a really good show.
Yes.
There-
So the thing is, like, that's where I started my improv journey.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, I took classes at Second City, and I did Tony and Tina's wedding.
I knew this about
Oh
you.
my.
And no temptation to go back and be the mom.
No. And I do have people who did the show with me who are doing the new version with the new people. The people who ran it before,
Right, the Tomaskas.
the Tomaskas, they weren't savory individuals. And so, I mean, and they're not a part of it anymore.
Right.
So, but I did meet some of my very best friends doing that show, and that I still love and talk to today, who are in New York doing wonderful, like, Emmy Award-winning reality shows and things like that. But from the Free Associates saved me from Tony T's. They cast me in BS at the Royal George.
I may have seen you in that, but I don't remember.
I was always the patient because I didn't look like anyone on the show.
Right.
So I was always.
Because it was all lookalikes.
It was all lookalikes. So
Right,
I was the guest star patient every week. So we would interview the audience member, and then that was the guest star patient, and that was my storyline every week. So
That's really fun.
it was fun. It was fun. The original cast was really fun because they were all the original Free Associates, and then Mark stepped down
Right.
as artistic director. And the original Free Associates all got a little tired of doing BS, which they had been running for like 7 years at that point.
Right.
They wanted to do other stuff. So the original Free Associates started doing a Hitchcock show, which was called Alfred Hitchcock Resents.
Okay.
And they recast BS. And I was the only person left that had done BS before. But I wasn't a Free Associate. So I had only done one contract. I had only done the show with
okay.
them.
Right.
And they recast the whole thing, and it wasn't great.
Okay.
It was young people who didn't understand the genre, didn't understand the work that they were doing. And it kind of...
It was towards the end of the run of the show anyway, right?
It kind of was. We tried to recast. So then I was like, I don't want to act in this anymore. And Mark was gone, and I have my feelings about Mark. He directed my first one-person show. Which I think is how my cross intersection with Mary, because he was directing something of Mary's,
Right.
and I would go meet him at those rehearsals, and we would go rehearse my show.
That may have been the thing about past life regression.
Yes, I think so.
That was a great show.
And it was at the
didn't-
Lifeline,
It
or not the Lifeline, the
Live Bait.
Live Bait Theater.
Yeah, they did a version of it at the Skybox,
Okay.
but that was just because they could.
Yeah.
And then it ran at Live Bait, and it was one of those weird things where Mark had a different show than Mary did.
Oh yeah, well.
And that happens a lot.
Yes.
In theater.
And with Mark.
And, yeah, as it turns out. But what was interesting, a friend of Mary's did a live reading of it because she was just trying to plug it. And she's like this Broadway person of some.
Oh.
Yeah, she's kind of a big deal at this point. Like she just did Mary Stewart over here at Chicago Shakes.
Okay.
And she was the two leads they like imported. So she was Elizabeth and the other one was Mary Stewart. But they were both had worked with that director in New York. Mm-hmm. So the director sort of brought them. Mm-hmm. And she killed. I mean, she was amazing because I've known this woman 30 years.
Yeah.
But I've only known her socially.
Okay.
And I've always thought she was delightful. I saw her do Married Child like 25 years ago at Steppenwolf, when she lived at my house, in that room that people live in. And and Ethan Hawke was in that cast.
Oh wow.
And he would show up because they played a couple. They were like the what do you call the young people? Starts with an N. What is it? I can't remember. Anyway. Anjana, sorry, it doesn't start with an N.
The Anjana, got
yeah,
it.
they were the young people
couple,
in that show.
the young lovers.
And he would pull up in front of our house
And
to
Ethan
pick
Hawke?
her up. Yes,
Oh,
because
fun.
he drove his car out from New York or wherever he lives, or lived at the time, because he was like his 20s. He would pull up in front of our house and it was like a duster. It was like the Starsky and Hutch car. And he'd like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And she would squeal with delight and run out. She was like 25 at the time, 28. But she's one of those people that could play 14 till well into her 30s.
Oh, nice.
And she screamed with delight, go get in this car. And I'm like, don't you want to introduce you to your fella?
Yeah.
And we referred to her as Trixie, the teenage daughter. And then later I said, so what did you and Ethan Hawke do? Because it's like you got to hang around to play a couple, you know, so it was just kind of, they'd go to Whole Foods and walk around.
Of course.
Because I thought it was going to be a lot more sordid.
You know what? That's so interesting because I think that's still a popular date. To go to Whole Foods and walk around.
Because there's food. There's
and
booze.
You could buy a 6-pack and literally walk around with your beer and just like walk around.
Right.
It's
and
like,
talk about fruit.
Yeah. It's like an early version of Italy.
Yes. yeah. You go to Italy when you're going to spend some money.
Yes. Oh, I love Italy. So, okay.
So anyway, so that happened.
Yeah.
And her one-person show was, in 2000, when was 9/11? 2001. Yeah, so May of 2001, Mary decided, some friend of ours who's an attorney, is also a Vietnam vet motorcycle enthusiast, said, you know what'd be great is if you came with me on this motorcycle ride I've been doing for 10 years. It's a bunch of Vietnam vets. We get on a bike in Ontario, California, and we ride across the country.
Oh, wow.
And 300 people start and 30,000 people end.
Wow.
On Memorial Day at the Vietnam Memorial. And I want to do something with that. And she's like, great, let's talk about it. He goes, no, you really have to come. So she flies out to California with the assumption that there's going to be like a trailer or something, that she was going to be interviewing people on the road. She was going to do this like Studs Terkel thing.
Yeah.
It all goes to shit, like almost immediately. The guy that got to drive the camper that she's going to be in was like super creepy. So she's like, I'm not going to be with this dude. Her friend who booked her to do it bailed at the last minute because he had like some argument about corporate sponsorship and how this should never be sponsored, and we don't want Ford's name on this. So she ended up just getting on the back of a motorcycle of some guy we sort of knew who was like we thought the fiance of this guy, the guy originally booked her into it, his wife's cousin, right? So we thought it was his wife's cousin's fiance. This guy, I forgot his name even. Oh well. She gets on the back, effectively rides across the country with this dude, right?
Wow.
Yeah, like for 2 weeks. We went to visit her. So William, my son, was 4 at the time, or maybe 5. The closest they came to here was St. Louis, because they go straight across the country. We drive down to St. Louis to intercept them, just to see how it's going.
Yeah.
She's gone native in a week. She's like full leathers, filthy, and kind of like, we're here, your loving family is here to see you. And she's like, what do you want? It was like, oh, okay. And we're still getting phone calls from guys named Snake for months later, but I don't want to know the details. What happened was on the road. What happens on the road stays on the road. Anyway, she ended up getting. So she was hanging out with this one dude for a while, and then she hung out with this guy Iron Mike, who was the leader of the pack.
Okay.
And the whole deal is about. So you've got the miles of motorcyclists. But the first 6 fly in the missing man formation, and if you're not military, you may not know this.
No.
You see it in planes with with fighter jets. So it's 3 rows of 2,
Okay.
right? And the middle row is missing one,
Okay.
right? So there's a hole, and that's the guy that they lost.
Got it.
So it's when you see that means they're sort of celebrating
Like
the
it's
guy who
something.
went, yes, the guy they lost from their unit. So the big deal when you do this run, you can sign up and you can be in the missing man spot, which is the spot next to the empty spot. I'm going to get misty because I find this very moving.
It's okay.
You get to ride next to that spot, and basically everyone who does it hallucinates.
Oh, wow.
Because it's like the weight of everything just hits you.
Yeah.
And all the lives that have been lost through war, and just
Yeah.
and her dad fought in Korea but didn't die. He died of cancer later.
Yeah.
Not cancer, I'm sorry, heart thing. Before I met them, so I'm not really
Right.
cool on the details. And then so you're riding along next to the spot, and you're like, oh my God, all the people before me, yeah. And she's on the back of a guy's bike, so she's not even having to steer herself. And it's like the most amazing thing that's ever happened to her at this point. They finish the run, they get back, she flies home, starts to ride it up.
Yeah.
Kelly Leonard, I'm pretty sure it was Kelly, hooked her up with This American Life.
Oh, wow.
And they were like ready to like seriously talk about it when 9/11 happened.
Oh.
So This American Life got really busy with some other stuff.
Yeah.
And never kind of pushed it and circled back. And she sort of sat on it for about 6 years. Mm-hmm. And then she decided that she did Live Bait does Filet of Solo. Or used to do Filet of Solo. Now I think Lifeline does it. Sharon Evans talked her into doing, just do a little piece for Filet of Solo. So she got up and she did it. It killed.
Yeah.
And Sharon said, I want to produce a full show.
Oh.
And it was you didn't see it, I'm assuming.
I did not, but was this the one Mark was directing or no?
No, this is something else. It was Edward Thomas Herrera directed it.
Okay.
Who, if you know, he's a neo-futurist, or he's famous for the neo-futurist, even though I don't think he is ever part of it.
Okay.
His husband, David Kadeski, was a big neo-futurist guy, like Too Much Light way back when.
Yeah.
And then, and Edward's always done spoken word, and he's these are the most interesting people I know.
Yeah.
Also, how I know another free associate / whatever, Darren Stevens. I know from them.
Yes.
Yes, because it's I know you.
He was the most famous free associate.
Yes. Yes,
Right?
and he'd be thrilled to know that. So anyway, Edward Thomas Herrera directed this, and it was basically Mary, a stool, and a glass of water. And 90 minutes. And she just talked about this experience. And sometimes the stool, or it was a chair, so she would turn it around and be a motorcycle for a little while, and then she'd turn it back. And it was just that. And it was a really good, fascinating show to watch. And it was real, because she'd been teaching comedy writing for so long, she knew how to, get up to almost crying than a laugh, like that kind of. It was a really great show, and unfortunately, it kind of died with her. So, I have it. Mm-hmm. I would love to see it mounted somewhere.
Yeah.
it would be a matter of finding the right actor. I mean, and that's when she died. That's what we were trying to work out. Would be to either write a book about the experience, which was really the point of it anyway. This was just a writing exercise to get an outline for the book.
Yeah.
But she ended up, but as you know, Chicago theater, if you're 20 people and you're doing well, if you're like storefront theater in Chicago, it's really hard to make a living.
Yes.
As you've learned a few times.
More than once.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was a great show. And that's, and then
That's the hardest thing I feel like about Chicago. You hear people say like, oh, anybody can go there, and with $50 you can put up a show.
You can.
You absolutely can.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's so many amazing things that no one consumes.
Right.
No one. I've seen, like, I remember going to an open mic in Skokie that, an open mic. Mia McCullough, who's a playwright, she's had work produced like The Goodman and the Steppenwolf, and we met taking a FemCom stand-up class.
Okay.
And she's awesome, and she writes about like refugees and amazing, like, important work. She decided to try her hand at hosting an open mic, so I went to go support her, and it was up in Skokie, and Skokie's far for me.
Right.
But I'm going to go support my friend. It's a coffee house, so it's not like, you're knocking back drinks and all that.
Yeah, and kind of low stakes.
Yeah, low stakes. And there's not a lot of people there, but I remember that this gentleman got up to play guitar, and he's weathered. He's someone who looks like they work outside because their skin is very wrinkled from the sun, and he's very tan, and he's like gravelly, and he's just in every way he's weathered is all I could say, and got up just to sing a song on the guitar, and it was gorgeous. It was beautiful, and it brought me to tears. And here I am in a coffee shop in Skokie with 5 other people witnessing this amazing moment that all I can do is talk about. And I just think, like, gosh, if this guy could have just taken this moment, bottled it, and threw it out in the world, and everyone got to experience this. But totally. there's just those things happen everywhere in these tiny little pockets all over Chicago.
And there are a million of them.
Yes.
You're right, and because a lot of really good people are here, and there's a lot of really good people who just sort of given up, or they have to like have health insurance or whatever, so they're off doing that and maybe doing their thing once a month or once every couple of weeks, or and think of all the like really talented improvisers we know that really isn't in their main gig, but it's just something that they're doing right now. Well, they kind of work through maybe figuring out the balls to go out and audition for sitcoms or write a novel or because the world's your oyster when you're 25.
Oh, sure.
Not me, though. I'm beaten down. I have no oysters.
I feel you. But, okay, so...
So, anyway, so that was... what did I say about... Yeah, so Mary, then she ran a writing program for years. Then she died of, like, a heart thing. So get your blood pressure checked when you turn 42. You're probably close to that.
41.
Oh, yeah. Get your blood pressure checked. That's my advice to you. Because she dropped dead when I was in the kitchen getting her glass of wine.
Oof.
She came home because she was doing... So, to bump her book... she enrolled in Northwestern has a creative nonfiction. I don't know if it's part of their master's program or maybe it's a separate thing. It might have been through the adult ed thing, but it's a program. I don't know what the outcome is, but one of the outcomes is you write your book. You write your goddamn book you've been planning to write.
Oh, got it.
Right. So and like Alex Kotlowitz is one of the teachers. He's like the one every other semester teacher because he's like the biggest name in Chicago and that. But it's basically you're doing John Krakauer books, right? So it's real life things, but you tell them in an interesting way. So it's like these New Yorker articles that you read that's about, so it's that kind of stuff. And so she was taking this, she was in this program, and then, I mean, do you still teach a second city?
I do. I do once a week. I teach in the writing program.
Oh, good.
And like, another side note, every student that goes through the writing program, they get this template of
Does it have Richard in it?
Richard and Mary.
Yeah.
They get a writing template
That's me.
of a format, but I tell every student the story of it. I tell them the story of it, and I say this is who this is, and so because
That's
it's important.
Nice. Thank you.
Because it's important. And every time we're in the Mary Scruggs writer's room, I make sure I tell people like who this was because it's important. I make sure I tell people about Judy. Like, do you guys know?
Oh my God, yes.
Do you guys know why the Beat Lounge is named Judy's Beat Lounge?
No.
And I make sure every term I take like some time to give some history of the building.
Right.
I may or may not hit on Zulovic. Once in a while I hit on Zulovic, but I can't always get him in.
Right.
But...
Well, but Don DePolo, tons of people don't know who he was, and he was the guy you got when you didn't have Dell.
Yeah, see, Don had died before I had gotten...
But I have friends
Yeah.
who did... Like when the Second City Training Center, like Players Workshop exists.
Yeah.
But the Second City Training Center was Don DePolo and some guy with a coin box if he was sober.
Right.
And you gave somebody $5 or $10 and you went and sat down and that was your class. And sometimes it was Del. Until Del figured out his little cult of personality thing, which was even before Sharna found him.
Yeah.
It saved him from whatever ruin he was in or headed towards.
Yes.
So and that was actually where the Skybox is where that class was. It was like some big old space.
Yeah.
Outside the theater, maybe? I don't even know when the movie theater was there.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a stage, but it was about where they did it.
Yeah.
And that was the whole training center.
Yes.
Before
I do
they
know
figured
that.
out how to make money.
Oh, I do know that. I know when I was a student there, where the fire happened. There used to be like a door that had a code to it that like every student had this code, and I was like, how is this secure if like 800 people every 8 weeks get the code? But okay.
That was how you got.
You would get up to your classroom. It was right next to where the Adobe Grow was, basically where the fire happened. It was a doorway into the building, like old Bisco offices were your classrooms. And there was like 3 or 4 classrooms there.
Oh, that's funny.
And that's where we would put our code in, we would go up, and there was like 3 or 4 classrooms, and then, or the Skybox. That was it. It was either you were in these 3 or 4 classrooms or you were in the Skybox. And my version of graduating from the writing program was every Sunday, Eric Spetznagel would sit up in those offices, in those classrooms, and you would bring $5 and your script, and you would put $5 in the middle of the table, and then the people there would read your script out loud, and then he would give you notes, and that was the writing program. And that was it.
And what was the $5?
It went to him.
So they didn't even have a class.
No.
It was just Eric.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. He's a really good writer.
Oh, no, I know. But I remember the first time I went.
I heard that he started the writing program at Second City.
That was the writing program.
Now, Mary had taken a class from Michael McCarthy.
Yeah.
Many years ago. After he did Saturday Night Live, he was back trying to figure out what to do, and he did it right. But I wonder if that was like a workshop-y thing.
Yeah, I mean...
Like he would come in as a guest artist for a while.
Yeah, it felt like it was really informal. It was just, you had to know about it. It wasn't like your teacher told you about it. Like, I found out from other students.
Okay.
Of like, this is a cool thing that we do. It's like, and then like this awesome guy tells you all these notes. But I didn't know about the $5 till I got up there and I brought my script, and he's like, so, everyone puts in $5, and I was like, for why? And he was like, for the service of me giving you notes, and I was like...
So this is like you telling Mick about the first time you saw Main Stage Show, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I've no awareness of who I'm talking to, like, near ever. I could be like, you could be the prince of some amazing country right now, and I'd be like, who the hell are you?
That's right.
Like, I have no
I got
self-awareness.
you water.
Yes. What do you want from me now? Like, I have no self-awareness. I got to go to the Just for Laughs festival in 2003 with my best girlfriend and writing partner, Katherine Pappas. We fell ass backwards into this TV show pitching thing. It was the first year they were doing it. So we went as writers.
Okay.
And we got to pitch this TV show to this room of like 300 celebrities. So there's like Jerry Seinfeld sitting there, and like the kids in the hall, and like Colin Quinn and Lisa Lampanelli. And this was during Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn. So it's like, you know, and me and my big mouth, I just say things like, we're standing in a room with like cool ass celebrities, and I'm like, Colin Quinn, my girl Katherine needs a job in New York. What, can you hook her up? And he's like, come here, sweetie. And they find me endearing and weird.
Right.
And he hired Katherine to be an audience coordinator for Tough Crowd
Really?
with Colin Quinn. Yeah, that's how it worked. I was just like, yo, I'm going back to Chicago. My girl
friend's
needs a
moving.
job. And he was like, okay, like, that's because...
See, I need those kind of jobs.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
charming and fun. I'm hosting bingo tonight in Skokie. I don't know that I've played bingo in a while. I'm going to have to remember how to play bingo.
I used to go with my mom every week in my high school once I turned 18, because that was the thing, right?
Okay, sure.
And I knew all the little things, like they would go, I-22, and everyone in the room would go, toot-toot.
Oh, okay.
Like all the little...
See, and that's the thing. This is, so my girlfriend and I were looking at she's like, oh yeah, apparently there's slang you use for bingo.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And it's like, couple of swans, 22.
Yes.
So I have to like come up with rhymes,
Yes.
sad little rhymes to go with things. I have to figure out a persona, I think. It's going to be probably Dick Bingo. And tomorrow night, I'm Dick Trivia.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And it's the Village Inn in Skokie, so I'm, once again, low stakes.
Yeah. All right, so let me get back to, like, Mary passes away.
Yeah, she died. So then I'm widowed.
Right.
Hanging around. I've got a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And, so I've got a job. I've got a 14-year-old. My kid is, and you've dealt with this, I think. How old is your daughter? She's 14?
She's 13. She'll be 14
you're
about 3
just
months.
dealing with this.
Yeah.
Is she going into 8th?
She's going into freshman year.
Oh, where's she going to go?
She got into Lincoln Park High School.
Oh, nice.
Honors, double
really
honors.
Close, yes. And my girlfriend is the children's librarian at the Lincoln Park branch of the Chicago Public Library.
Oh, very nice.
If she ever wants to volunteer or something,
Okay.
I would like volunteer hours, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do it ahead of time, because my girlfriend's like kind of a jerk to the kids who don't plan the volunteer hours, but it's like appropriately jerky. Like, okay, if you can't plan, I'm not just going to just hand this to you, but if you call me a couple weeks ago, we could have talked. Like that kind of thing. It's life lessons.
I love it.
But yeah, she's awesome and always likes help. So that's something.
Nice.
And also, you need a place to go after school. They're open till 6 most days, 8 until other days.
Yeah, I did hear that. The library's got like the hangout a little bit.
It is. Well, it's for the lazy parents who won't pay for daycare. But it is. There's a bunch of kids who go there.
Yeah.
And that's like from about 3 on. It's just filled with kids, and a lot of kids who like they're 14. And then they have the sibling that goes to like Oscar Mayer or someplace, so they have to like hang out until the mom can come pick them up, usually from the south side.
Right.
So it's better than just putting them on a bus and waiting for them to die. So you want to avoid that. But anyway, so Mary passes away. This was 2011, very, very suddenly. So she's teaching at Second City, 3 nights a week, usually 2 nights. Because when she hit 3, she got very cranky. Yeah. But and because she was also, it makes me sound like the worst parent, because she did all the morning stuff because she got William to school, and so did mommy stuff, and then went and taught at Columbia College as part of the Comedy Studies program. Wow. And then at night, a couple nights a week, it was like, what the hell was I doing? I was working my 9 to 5, and then I did the evening childcare. Yeah. That was the idea. And I'm going to stick with that. So, and then she added this master's program, or I think it's a master's program, at Northwestern. Mm-hmm. So now she's out a 3rd night a week and has a lot of work to do. Because the goal of that, like any of those programs, like if you take a playwriting program, you end up with a play at the end, right? That's your thesis. Right. So her book was going to be your thesis, and she'd be coached along by all these people who are familiar in the field. And she's a really good writer. Yeah. So, So she did one semester, and then like the beginning of the second semester, I think, because she like was coming up the back stairs like always, kind of lugs all her crap in. I don't know why women carry like 10 different museum bags like a homeless person,
Right.
But there, you know, there's different shoes, and there's like various apparati, and you know, but they don't know where the keys are, and she comes lugging up the stairs, and I threw together some dinner, as I often do. It's like 10:30, 11 at night. And we sat down, we watched an episode of Millionaire Matchmaker, because I will never forget that, because that's what we watched. And this is a normal evening for us, like, because she would just kind of, you know, drag in, and we'd hang out for a little while. And then sometimes I would drift off to bed, sometimes she'd have a glass of wine, and I'd hang out with her. And that particular night, the show ended, and she's like, you know, I think I'm going to be up for a little while. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. I'll stay up with you because I have no sense, and I don't care if I get any work done in the morning. So I went to the kitchen, get a glass of wine, came back, she's dead.
Oh, God.
It was horrible. It was horrible, horrible. And you call 911, and you do everything, and, you know, we're both on the heavy side. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess this is the call that we're going to be worried. You know, we're going to learn something valuable here after she recovers. And they couldn't revive her. We get to St. Francis Hospital in Evanston, and I walk up and I say, you know, I'm here for Mary Scruggs, and they're like, oh, we need to take you to the special room. Oh, well, we've got a room for you. And my thought, because I'm horrible, I think, oh, because we're white, right? And this is like a gunshot hospital. They don't want us to have to sit with the gangsters, because St. Francis gets a fair amount of that kind of, because that's the only hospital around Rogers Park. And I'm thinking, oh, white privilege, you know. On the one hand, it's sort of nice to be on the good side of it, but it sucks that it exists. Yeah. You know, I'm like, argh. And William, who is like 14, I'd woken him up to tell him something was wrong with his mom. We drive over to the hospital. He's like, oh my God, Dad, not the special room. And I didn't even think that was where they tell you that you don't have a loved one anymore. So it's like the room with the boxes of Kleenex everywhere. And they sit down and they tell you that your loved one didn't survive. And so they're like, oh, okay, oh, your wife's dead. And it's like 2 a.m. Yeah. So I call her sister, I call Aunt Libra, I call our attorney, who's also a very good family friend. And Libra at the time, her husband's mother was very old, and kind of like they were expecting that call for her for months. And they thought this was finally it. And when nobody expected Mary to go at 42. Everybody had me pegged as the heart attack person, as being a bigger guy, and like not having great eating habits. But anyway, so that happened. So then I was down for, I didn't know what to do really. Yeah. And I needed something to do, and William was like in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. So he could be left home alone in the evenings. Mm-hmm. So I started going to Annoyance on Thursday nights for Messing with a Friend, because Susan's always been a very good friend to us. Mm-hmm. She was like at our wedding, and I've known Susan forever. And I thought, well, that's something I can do. I can go watch some improv. And I started going to Messing for a while. And then about 6 months, I thought, I miss taking improv classes. Yeah. So I was like the old guy in your improv class at Annoyance. Yeah. Because I won't take it at Second City because it's just too sad. Yeah. I don't need like,
constant reminders.
Yeah, Norman and Ann going,
yeah, right.
Andy sucks. Oh. It's so sad. He's so tragic on so many levels. And I had a really nice time. And then I made friends with all these like really lovely people in their late 20s who were like kind of working some stuff out. Yeah. And who I'm still pretty good friends with. Yeah. And then you just kind of, I don't quite have the wherewithal to perform. I would take class with like Mulaney and the occasional pickup here or there, and it was just one of those things where really I need to find a group that are my age and skill level, right? Yeah. Because I can't find my age is not a problem, but
Yeah.
all the other improvisers at my age are Dave Pasquesi, you know,
Yeah. They've
it's
been
like
doing it for 20
they're
years.
so good.
Yeah.
Or they're crazy. Or the middle would be like Jerry Schulman, who would probably be really fun to improvise with.
Yeah.
You know, like guys like that. I think One Group Mind is trying to work with that kind of
Cultivate something like that.
Yeah, but
When they were I'll tell you what, when Mike was at Frankie's,
oh, did they run it out of there for a while too?
yeah, the first companies at Frankie J's was CIC, Defiant Thomas Brothers, and One Group Mind was the first
wow.
3 companies at Frankie J's. And I ran Frankie's in
Right.
exchange for free rent for CIC.
Oh, so it was part of the CIC deal. I
It
didn't know
was.
that. Oh,
And
okay.
so I wrote the contracts for Defiant Thomas Brothers and for One Group Mind. And there was another group that John Leadley ran, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. It was something like Sleazy or something.
There was a pun.
Yeah, it was some kind of pun. But it was like their deal was $5, and every week they would wheel a keg in and do just sloppy drunk improv
Okay.
for $5.
But it wasn't a booze show, right?
No, it was for improv. It was like a jam for $5 would cover the keg, and they would tap the keg every week. And like Frank never let me like give people codes to lock up because he was obsessed about making sure the space was always secure and
Right,
nice.
which is good.
So it is absolutely good. But also, I was the one getting up at 2 a.m. to lock up after sleazy
the drunk
improv.
guys.
And so, you know, I'm like...
And not living near there.
No. So, like, the alarm would go off, and I'd roll out of bed and go and be like, did you have this improv show? Can you guys just give me rent and get the hell out so I can... Oh, but one more. And I'm like, it's 2 a.m. I didn't have children.
Right. So
Right.
it's a little bit easier.
A little bit easier. You know, and I was trying to get my foot in the door as a producer, and this is what led to me becoming more of a producer with the Free Associates.
Right.
I learned all about writing contracts, about dealing with the city and,
Yeah.
and
You're
permits.
bizarrely accomplished.
It's
really fun to talk to you because, like, oh, Angie knows how to do some of this stuff.
Yeah,
And
but
there's no...
I wish it would translate into job interviews.
Right, I know.
Because it doesn't.
Well, that's the whole thing. The IT thing is like I've got so I have 4 years missing from my resume,
Yeah.
which makes it really interesting. And luckily, I was trying to interview for something a couple weeks ago, and it was this. There's this thing on LinkedIn, and it may be, I don't know if it's new or I just never noticed it. But there's always been the thing that says, "Oh, you went to USC. Here's some people who went to USC that work at this place that you're looking at." Right?
Yeah.
But lately, I've seen this thing that says, "Oh, you worked at Pat Systems. Here's some dudes who worked at Pat Systems. Maybe they could hook you up." And I think that's fairly new.
Oh,
maybe.
yeah.
So, and there were like, there's one of them I'm like, oh my God, that's my friend who I was actually really good friends with. So I was like, hey, I noticed you're working at this place. I noticed they have an opening. What do you think? He's like, oh my God, yes, you'd be great for this.
Okay.
I said, great. What about the 4 years I'm missing? Because he knows my situation, right?
Yeah.
Because we worked together when Mary died. And he's like, well, what did you do? And I said, well, you know, I wrote a couple of screenplays. I tried to produce a TV show.
Yeah.
I produced a web series. I started, worked on my pottery business.
Yes.
And, I did a little acting. I did some acting in films. I did a little stage stuff. I'm directing a show to Annoyance right now, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really
you
excited.
have to send me the stuff.
And so it's like I was busy,
Right.
but not on like super tangible things.
Right.
And he was great because he's been like working in corporate speak for a little while, and he's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, you explored alternative,
Yeah.
and it's like I had a walk. I mean, you don't want to say that my wife died and I had a walkabout, which is
Right.
what happened.
Yeah.
And I did work, and I worked for a guy for a couple of years, but I still had to have my knees replaced, and I thought I'd be able to find a job right away, and I didn't look that hard because I've never really had trouble getting work.
Yeah.
And then now that I kind of need it, I've got this like 4-year gap.
Right.
So he's like, oh no, this is how you say it, and it's like I've learned a lot from these experiences, and I want to take it to your company, which
Yeah.
is really smart.
I mean, it's part of the issue I'm finding. Like, if you look at my resume, it's filled with shit.
Right.
But if you look at it from some corporate speak, it looks like I've never worked a day in my life.
Right.
It looks like I have dicked around with giggle jokes and good time laugh beer drinking for 20 years.
Right.
But it's like, I know about permits, I know about inspectors, I know about incorporations, I know about nonprofit, fundraising, gala. I mean, like, I know shit, but I don't know how to make you realize that what I did was exactly what you're doing. We just have a name, chemically imbalanced comedy.
Right.
You know?
I just say CIC, don't say chemically imbalanced.
But it's crazy.
Do you look at NFO.com or .org, I think?
No.
It's the not-for-profit one, and they have stuff like that periodically. You would be really good as a line producer on a film.
Yeah.
Or like a production coordinator.
Yeah.
Because you're like super organized and you're kind of on top of things and you're bitchy the right way. Well, like, you know what I mean?
Preach to the podcast, Richard.
No, I mean, it's like because you know that if you're doing it wrong, and Angie will tell you, and you don't tell us in horrible terms, but it's like, okay, this needs to be approached a different way.
Depends whose opinion you ask.
To get the nice pet, you need to do it a certain way, rather than the screamy part.
Right.
Yeah, but I could see you doing that. That makes perfect sense for me.
The couple of things I've been getting as far as like freelance goes is I've actually worked for 2 now cosmetics companies.
Really?
Creating humorous online content for them.
Oh, that's great.
Memes and tweets and emails. Another thing, like writing humorous email campaigns for that. So like both those gigs are done. They were kind of short-term things, but it was both I had to do a ton of research on cosmetics companies, which are traditionally not humorous.
Right.
But they wanted to engage more online with content, and because I've also been like freelancing, selling some content to Funny or Die for their Twitter account.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, no one in Chicago's doing this for some reason.
Yeah.
In New York and LA and even like all other small pockets, there's thousands of freelance writers.
Was that weird app thing?
Pitch, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like 3,000 freelancers on this app, like pitching jokes to Funny or Die.
And they just throw jokes out.
And just throwing jokes out, and you get $10 for a joke if they pick it up. Well, there's only like 30 people in Chicago doing this, and I don't understand why. Like, I think it's a great, fun thing to do. It's been saving me, because on the days where I'm like, you have no purpose, it's like, no.
Right.
I will spend an hour writing jokes for Funny or Die that may or may not get purchased.
Well, and that's all the stuff I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
I have like a ton of little projects, but it's like they're weird projects.
Yeah.
Like for one of there's no reason you would have seen this unless it was really late and you were sad and lonely and your husband wanted to watch it because you wouldn't watch this on your own. Drive Angry. It's a Nick Cage movie.
Okay.
And it's basically like the Fire Skull one, whatever that is.
Okay.
Yeah. So I forgot what character that is, some Marvel character. But it's on that he's on a motorcycle, this he's on a vintage car, and he roars out of hell to. He doesn't solve his own murder, but it's one of those things where it just doesn't make. He's rescuing his granddaughter from a cult or something.
Okay.
And I saw the whole thing. No idea what happened. But there's this character that's basically like a Terminator character, who's the guy whose job it is in hell to. Do we have are we at a time? Or
We're getting no.
Okay,
go ahead. No, tell
fine.
me. Finish.
It's the guy whose job is to like get the souls that escape from hell. So he's basically the bounty hunter for hell. And he's chasing Nick Cage, and he's awesome. He's like the best thing in this movie. Yeah. And the guy who plays this guy, David William Fincher, I think his name is. But he's got. If you saw him, you'd be like, oh yeah, totally that guy. And he's doing very similar to a Terminator type character, where he's just like. Doesn't matter what's in his way, and he's flipping tanker trucks, and it's like crazy. And he's like running into people going, I'll see you in 2 years. Yeah. That stuff, right? My friend has some connection somewhere with somebody who does TV content. He's an architect, but whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I pitched this to my buddy who's works at, TV company. And he said I should write it up. You know how to do that, right? I'm like, yeah, 30 years ago. but
Right?
whatever. I'll use my screenwriting degree to and we came up with a different, like my son happened to be home.
Yeah.
Who's a TV, he's actually a screenwriting major at Loyola Marymount in LA right now. So he's like right on this stuff because that's how he thinks right now. That's all he thinks about, where I'm having to like dust off the cobwebs to remember formatting. And so he's like, oh, okay, so the thing about these kinds of shows is you can't just have this guy run around knocking shit over. Like, somebody gets out of hell, the next 45 minutes you're running around catching them. That's not a very interesting show after the first one, right?
Yeah.
So you need, for Sherlock Holmes, there has to be a Watson, right? There has to be somebody who hangs out like, oh my God, you're awesome, or oh my God, you're such a pain in the ass.
Right.
And I'm kind of attached to you because if I'm not here, you're going to be worse somehow. Or, it's like this weird codependent. So my kid came up with the idea that it's this girl who's at a job fair, couldn't get a good internship. So she's Megan the intern, but she's the intern to hell.
Oh, nice.
But isn't like really like a lot of interns are not that interested in what their business is.
Right.
Just needs the college credits.
Oh, that's fun. So you're working on this right now?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing at home. But I've also got like this website I'm trying to develop for somebody that's about. It's personal it's like Angie's List for personal trainers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a bunch of just weird stuff.
Little stuff.
That none of which is making money, but all could maybe, because I'm all about residual income or a regular paycheck.
Right.
But you have like a working person in your house, right?
That
so
is
there's
the
like
thing.
insurance and stuff.
So yes, so
that's nice. I am
yes.
screwed.
Yeah.
My insurance is like insane. It's like almost my mortgage.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, it's $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
My mortgage is too. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to be,
Yeah.
shelling. And because I have a college age person,
Right.
I feel like, if it was just me, I would probably have cheaper insurance. But also I'm at an age where like crap, there's always some
Stuff
new
can
thing.
happen, yeah.
So I would be maybe have cheaper insurance, but I want to make sure he's covered.
Yes.
Right? Because
you're a good parent.
I'm trying.
Yes.
Trying my best. But so I'm working on a bunch of stuff, but I don't have like a definable income thing. And I've been living off of, dead wife money for a while.
Yeah.
And that's going to run out sooner than I want it to.
Yeah.
And college tuition is very expensive.
Yes.
So, So where you want to work is a college that you want to get a job doing like event planning at Columbia College. That's what you want to do. I just figured this out.
Yeah.
For you. Because
Yeah.
they have exchange programs.
Okay.
There's tuition exchange.
Oh.
So there's a list.
Yeah.
And there's like certain rules, like you have to apply a certain time, or the college that you work at has to be part of like a certain group. But so you can get comparable tuition at another school, and you'd pay considerably less.
Oh.
So start looking at that. That's the advice I would give anybody with a kid in college right now. I mean, the kid in high school right now, because that gives you 4 years to get a college job. So
I love it.
But like my girlfriend's ex-husband works out at one of the ones in Oak Park, Concordia, one of the other. I can't remember which one. Anyway, it helped one of her kids. He's going almost for free.
Wow.
In Iowa. The other one is at Tulane, and it helped not at all because Tulane's not in that particular program. Or sometimes it's like, oh no, we've used up all of our tuition exchange credits.
Got it.
So you're screwed. I'm sorry.
The other kids are screwed up.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're doing some kind of a.
You're doing that 5-0 what's it?
Yeah, we shove a little money away.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah.
But that's still money, and it's way less than you want it to be.
Yeah.
No matter how much it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it was like $500,000, it would be less than you needed.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that like they cap how much you can put in there too. So you can only put in like $1,000 a year or something.
Oh, it's nothing.
Yeah. So.
But it'll help.
Yeah.
It'll help get you through the first year.
Yeah.
But I would look at that.
Okay.
And just see if there's some kind of, or get I don't know how high you have to. Like one class is probably not enough. You may have to be like full-time faculty somehow.
Yeah.
Or something if you're going to teach.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to figure something out. I mean, leave in the comments what you think I should do or give me a job. All right, I want to thank our guest today, Mr. Richard Scruggs. If you like what you heard, please share it. Use the hashtag idiottalkshow, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Talk to Me Like I'm an Idiot. You can find us on all your favorite social channels at Idiot Talk Show. Make sure you subscribe anywhere that you get podcasts. And make sure you tell a friend. We can't grow without your love. Make a comment and we will definitely comment back. Have an awesome week, everybody.